Yeah, so let's start, guys. Yeah, till now we have covered data types, loops, like all the fundamental concepts. Okay. Now the next concept in Python is functions. Okay. Functions not only in Python but in any programming language is like actually the backbone of the programming language. Okay. Because whatever you write till now, you have used so many functions, whether you're aware or not aware. We'll see that. But once you start writing the code, so most of your code is actually in the form of functions. Okay, it will be the whole work will be like calling a function, passing, and you are creating a function, and passing the arguments to a function, right? So this type of the work will be the majority thing. Okay, but what is actually a function, right? And like what is its importance, right? We will try to just understand in basic words, right? uh, See, most of the time when you are writing a code, or when you are writing some script to achieve a goal, right? So you will most of the times you will write some lengthy codes, right? Here mostly there will be certain parts of the code which are needs to be repeated multiple times. Okay, part of the code needs to be repeated multiple times for different inputs. Okay, so and this is not looping. Okay, so looping is using different values and looping through a part of the code. Okay, but here you are using the same part of the code, right? But the function might change every time. Okay, there the function will not change. Okay, so in the looping we are just looping through a part of the code, but when it comes to the function, right? So how you want write the particular part of the code, right? This part of the code, if you create a function, so you can control how you want to execute. You can also control what output it should generate, and what type of variables we are passing, what type of input it should take. So you can control, but the major point is you can use the same part of code multiple times. You don't need to write again. Okay, so you can use the same part of the code multiple times, right? So since this scenario will be coming across multiple times in any part of the code, right? So where you want to write 10 lines of code and to check something and return something, right? So this part of the code, let's say if it's a function, you want to use it multiple times. So instead of writing multiple times, right, so you can also just use a function. Okay, but one strange thing is using functions is not mandatory. Okay, functions are not 100% mandatory. Okay, because what happens, see, there are two types of programming methods which you can opt for. Okay, one is called top down top to down programming. Second thing is modular programming. Okay, so top to down programming is writing everything. Okay, from top to you'll start writing everything to bottom, like, right? Like without any callings, without any functions, everything whatever you want, you will start writing its respective lines of code. Okay, but second thing is a modular coding, so where it will be extremely structured, right? And you will use functions, right? And you will also use modules, right? So the control will actually pass through different .py files. Okay, so you have, let's say, one function, second function, because uh, just to give you an idea. So I think you guys might have already heard of these words, like once you start writing the ML actual project, so what are the different steps? Even if you consider the major steps, what we have, okay, let's say you have data uh, collection. Okay, and then you have data pre-processing. Okay, and then you have, for example, feature engineering. Okay, and then you have data split. Okay, and let's say you have train. Okay, and you have predictions. Okay, for example, right? So if you, so these are the lines of code, and you know what all functions and modules and libraries you want to use. So one thing, the plain thing, what you can do is you can start with line number one. Okay, and keep on writing every part of the code over here. Okay, in one single .py file, okay, you can write, and let's say you wrote 1,000 lines, right? This works. Okay, so if you ask fundamentally whether it will work or not, yeah, it will work because it's the same code, same logic you are writing. Okay, but writing is not the only thing. Second thing is the presentation, and also the the look. Okay, and the structure is also important. So when you write this, so it looks dirty, right? So the third person cannot understand. If you want, if you are move to another project, and if you want to hand over this to some other person, so it looks like Greek and Latin for him, like to understand all the 1,000 lines of code. Even though he's also good at Python, right? Even though he's good at Python, right? It takes a lot of effort, and he might get irritated, like to understand where the control is going to go through all the 1,000 lines, right? And also here you are not using the beautiful concept of functions, right? So you're writing the same code 10 times. If you want, you're writing 10 times. Okay, and even if you want to go and change back one thing, right? So it will be very hard for you to debug and like test the code also, right? So that's why this is not at all recommended, and nobody will actually use this type of method in actual companies. Okay, the other way is a modular programming. So where each part of the code is divided into its own respective, .py file. Okay, for example, this is a part one. This will be part two. This will be .py will be part three. Okay, and only the purpose of this first part .py file, Python file, is to process the data collection. So whether let's say this is connected to some database connection, okay, let's say MongoDB, and it will connect to that, and it will collect the data. Okay, and it will return the data. That's all. That's the only purpose of this .py file. Okay, and you can write that in different functions. Okay, even in this .py file also you can write function one, function two. Okay, first function might check the connection with the database. Second function might actually connect. Third function might extract the data, and fourth function might just return the data. Okay, so it will be beautifully structured. Okay, individual tasks, you can get a clear idea at step level. Step one, what is happening in this .py file. Okay, even if there is some issue also, you can, instead of touching the whole code, you can just go to this function 2 and check. Okay, it's actually due to the connection issue. Okay, the database is perfect. Okay, it is available, but the connection issue, so you can just modify this function so that the flow continues. Okay, same thing goes for .py file, and the way how you can interact with these different .py files is also, you will pass the functions, and it will return the values, sort of like that, right? So it will be, you will have good control and good clarity what's happening. And testing also, it will be better. Debugging also, it will be better, right? So and also, the code will be smaller when compared to here, right? So when you suddenly look at 1,000 lines of code, and if you want to analyze, obviously you will be like taken aback, right? So you will not be that interested, right, or comfortable for that matter. But if you have small parts of code, like in different 10 .py files in a folder, so it is also very interesting for you. Okay, so to track back, right? So first you'll check here. So okay, some value is not getting passed to this .py file, that's why this is not running. So it will be interesting for you to go and trace back here, check this small part of code. Okay, just 100 lines of code, you can understand, okay, this is fine. You'll give a tick mark for it, and then you will trace back here. Okay, so it's also easy for your debugging. Okay, and even if you want to make a change for this .py file, you can completely ignore all these files and just test only this part instead of testing the whole code in this way. Okay, so that's the reason functions are extremely important, and it's the most used and famous type of programming model, of type of programming which people are using. Everybody out there uses this. Okay, and for that, functions is a backbone, right? And today our topic is functions, right? So we are going to study different concepts of functions. Okay, so fine. So with this basic understanding, right? So let's try to go and see some what are the actual functions in Python. Okay, so to start with, there are two different types of functions. Okay, so see, function is just that. Okay, so it's a part of code. Give input, it will perform some function based upon these inputs, and it will give you the output. That's it. You can use, and just every time you want to call the function, just okay, you need to call this function and pass some arguments, which we'll see, and it will perform some action, and it is going to give you the output. Okay, that's all, nothing more. Okay, so now if you see the built-in function, Yeah, so in function there are two types of functions. Okay, one is built-in function and second thing is a user-defined functions. Okay, as the name suggests, these are already built in. Okay, from the Python developers. Okay, and second thing is a user-defined. So this is according to your requirement and your wish, right? So even though you might have not consciously understood, but you have used lot of functions till now. Okay, so for example, every type of function, for example, type we have used it. Print is a function, right? Because what, now what, when the user writes something called as print, okay, the Python should understand it. The Python interpreter should understand, okay, he's actually trying to print something, right? So whatever you are writing here in the codes, it is just printing it out in the console or in the output, right? So obviously it is just doing some task, right? If you write some other word, this will not happen. Only when you write print, this is happening. That means what type of actions it should perform step by step is already written inside this print keyword. The moment it sees a print keyword, it understood it goes through all the code what is written under the heading of print inside the source code of this Python, and it will just do that task. Okay, what is that task? Just to print. Same thing when you write type, okay, it is performing specific action. So it is giving the data type, right? When you write, type length, it is doing some action, length, okay, maximum, minimum, okay. So all these are built-in functions. Obviously, it is doing, it is directly doing some part of, it's doing some action, specific action for us, right? So these are all built-in functions. So you cannot change them. You cannot change the action of print. Okay, you cannot change the flow of print because they're built in and they are completely fixed. Okay, and there are different types of functions. Okay, type conversion functions, int of 32, something like that. We have studied. We have seen the complete different scenarios of type conversions, right? Same thing for ID. We have seen some ID. And can you guys just let me know one or two functions which apart from this, which we have used till now, just in case you it's at top of your mind. No, you don't remember any function, built-in functions?
Square root.
Sorry,
Square root.
square root. Okay, right. Okay, fine. So we will come back to this built-in functions. Okay, there are some built-in modules also. We will see like different built-in modules and libraries, packages in detail, right? But first we need to focus on user-defined functions. Okay, so because these concept is the one which we are going to use, right? So now, see, I'm saying user defined functions, right? So this concept is actually very interesting and there is also very simple, and you will have a lot of things to learn over here, right? And once you are good with how to use function, and once you understand functions, what is how to call a function and how to return some values from a function, once you're comfortable with these functions, right, you can actually play. You can actually, I'm literally saying, you can play with you can Python, and you will understand code at least. When you just go to see, once you get the job, right, so nobody is going to write the code from scratch. No one, even the leads, even the architects, even the director also, they are not going to write the code from scratch. Okay, which I've practically seen. We'll go to GitHub. We'll see if someone has already worked similar on that on your use case. 99% of the time it will be available. You are going to copy that, you are going to download that or fork the GitHub repo, and you may not use it directly, but you will get a skeleton, you will get a picture, you need to just do some tweaks here and there, okay, and change it, but you will get an idea, right? So but first of all, to do that, right, so you need to understand the code, right? So it will be obviously written in the completely modular programming. You take any Python, sorry, any GitHub repo, right? So there will be like 10 to 20, 10 to 15, or at least less than 5 or 6 to 7 .bo files, okay, folders in the GitHub repo. So the control will be constantly passing from one file to another file. Okay, how it passes just because of the functions. So you'll be passing some value, you'll be calling some function. When you call a function, the flow will go to some other .py file. Again, it will come back. Again, it will go. So this is how it oscillates, right? So to understand that, right, to the flow, obviously you should have a very solid understanding of functions. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to for you to make, connect the dots and understand what's happening exactly over there. right? So because I faced that, so I just to tell you for 1 minute, right? So in the first time when I was working on the Python script in a company, right? So they have given me they have given me a code. Okay, so what you know what happened? So when I opened that repo, so I was actually very curious, like how it was, how it looked, the code, how these people write. It's a Jupyter notebook part, and he told me there will be one main.py file. Okay, so you just analyze that, and that is how that is where the whole our project, it was a insurance project, and he said this is where the whole logic is happening. Okay, then I opened that, so it's happening, just I less than 10 lines of code. Okay, so I was very happy. 10 lines of code, okay, is a very small project, I thought. Okay, then when I started going line by line, right, each line is calling some other .py file. Okay, so the first 2 3 lines are import, and I think last 4 to 5 lines are it's calling some other .py file. Okay, and once I go into this first call, right, so that is actually, like, let's say a big script. Okay, Python script, and from this again it is going to somewhere, and from there it is coming back here, and here this is going to somewhere, right? So it's actually like 10 to 15 .py files, the whole project, right? So but then, you should have obviously a good understanding of functions to understand, right? So it also took some time for me, okay, to understand the flow and what is getting passed, right? But once you exactly know only two things, what we are passing and what the function is passing to us. Okay, once you have clarity of these 2 points at every step of this code, it will be very easy for you, you don't need to worry. Okay, fine. So I would say with that basic interest, right, so let's start with user defined functions, right? So in the user defined functions, obviously the developer or the user programmer explicitly, he will, according to his requirements, he will define some functions. Okay, and first if you see the syntax, okay, the syntax is simple. Okay, def, define, shortcut for define. This, the moment you write this, it will turn into green color. That means system is understanding, okay, he's defining a function. And here you need to give function name. Okay, and here you need to give parameters. Okay, and colon you need to give, come here, function body, what all you want to write right here, and after that, okay, return value. Okay, now if you see, this is the complete syntax of any user defined function. Okay, define, def, function name, parameters, colon, function body, the actual logic, return the value. Okay, fine. But here all of these are not mandatory. Okay, few are mandatory, few are not. Okay, defining def is a keyword, mandatory, you should use every time to create a function. Function name is 100% mandatory. Parameters are not mandatory. Okay, return ring values are not mandatory. Okay, you can even define a function without any parameters. Oh, okay, and you can also call a function, or the function can operate without returning any value. Okay, these two are not mandatory, they're very important, but I'm saying just they're not mandatory. Okay, we'll see in which scenarios uh, you need to use them, and how you need to use them, why they're mandatory, what happens if we give, what happens if we don't give. We are going to see it in very detail. Okay, so we are going to cover all the scenarios. Okay, but overall what all a function can consist of is this. Okay, if you want to construct a full 100% completely available function, so then these are the whole things you need to think of. Okay, so now a simple function, if you write, okay, define, okay, morning. Okay, so this is a simple function, and inside that what I'm doing, I'm writing so this is simple print statement that I'm doing. Now I have defined the function. So now if I execute this, okay, a function is created. Okay, when the moment when you write def and given a function name and then you gave this braces and colon and wrote something, it is enough. A function is created. Okay, and it is understood by Python interpreter. But now the interesting point with the function is very a decent guy. Okay, he will only answer when you call him. Okay, so even if you define, that's fine, that's only definition, but he will answer only when you call him. Until you don't call him, he will not answer. Like we say, adagande amma kuda annam pettadu, right? Similarly, this guy also will not answer until you call, right? So now only when I call him, so the way how you can call the function is just give the function name, okay, and call it. Okay, when you do this, you are calling the function and it will print. Okay, so this is defining the function, and to call the function is use the same function name and the braces. So this will go and check where this function is there. Okay, this is matching, name is matching, then enter inside and perform all the uh, tasks, which is go through all the lines of code. Okay, so you're just printing, right? So this is a basic function. As you can see here, as I said, define and function name are mandatory, but parameters and return are not mandatory. Here I am not passing any parameters, I'm not returning any value, still the function works. Okay, so you can write, so you can call the function any number of times. You can write only once and you can call any number of times. Okay, that's now this is one simple usage of function. As you can see, okay, we'll understand, we'll take it one step at a time. So just to have a full picture of why, what is the importance of function in your mind, right? So but in first step, in step 0, if you're thinking what is the importance of function, so if I want to print this morning meet AI going on, so I can just write. So now different concepts come together. I in range of 10, right? So what I'm doing, morning function I'm calling 10 times, it's printing. Simple. In one line of code, I'm able to use the same piece of code 10 times, right? So obviously it is something interesting, right? Fine. So that is the main motto of the any functions, to use the same part of the code multiple times, right? Now whatever we are studying next is just an extensions, right? So once you invent something, you will keep on enhancing it, right? Same thing. So this is basic functionalities. Okay, good, very good. Now I just want to enhance it by using parameters, return values, everything. Now the actual cinema starts. Okay, but this is a basic function which you can see here. Okay, so after that, as you can see, this is a basic function which it is just returning some values, right? Now comes the second thing, comes the parameters. Okay, just the main important parts of any function is, let's say, heart and lungs are parameters and return value. Okay, that's all. So now parameters are, what are parameters? Parameters are nothing but they are just the inputs to any function. Okay, so that means if a function contains some parameters, then at the time of calling also, compulsory you should call by giving the parameters. Okay, otherwise it will give an error, right? So that means when you are defining a function, you have used some parameter. For example, I am saying define my function name is meet AI. Okay, here I am taking name. Okay, and inside that I'm printing I'm saying hello name, you joined late. Okay, so this is my function. Now in this function, as you have seen, define function name is fine. Now I'm using parameter, I'm passing a parameter. Okay, name, fine. So now what is this function defining? Okay, we did not call it yet. So now I'm calling the function meet AI is a function. Okay, now inside that, as I said, if you don't write any parameter when you're calling, also don't need to use any parameter. Okay, that's fine, simple. But now this function is defined with a parameter. Okay, that's why function definition is very important. So you should first see how a particular function is defined. So the way it is defined should be exactly the same way the way it is calling. Okay, so only then it will work. Now this function is defined in such a way that it should take one parameter as input. Okay. So when you're calling the function also, you should pass one parameter. Okay. So for example, I am saying Meghana, right? So now first thing when I run this function is defined. Now system understood. Okay. Meet AI is a function. Now I'm calling the function with a parameter, right? So now it took this first meet AI function, matching done. Next parameter one, it is expecting parameter one, it got passed, perfect, sync done, match, lock open, it will go inside. Then just now the value of this Meghana is stored in this name. Okay, that's important. So what is the parameter concept? Just to pass some values, right? So instead of just plainly executing some function, that is fine, but I want to change. Okay, I want to change the code, or I want to change how this particular lines of code works each time. Okay, because that's another step of functions. Okay, I want to use the same code, but it will changes according to my requirement each time. So now when you pass a parameter, so this Meghana is now stored in name. It's another way. If you just think simply, it's another way of saying name equal to Meghana. We create variables, right? So here it's another way of telling, hey, name should be now Meghana. Okay, so now name will be Meghana, and that now this Meghana will be used here. So that's why you're getting hello Meghana, you joined late. Hello Meghana, you joined late. Okay, same thing you can also, right? So same part of the code you are using again, but with each time with a different input. Each time with a different input. Each time this Karthik will be name. Here Meghana will be name. Okay, this is how you are passing the parameter and getting an output. Okay, are we good, guys? I hope you guys are following.
Yes, sir. Follow.
Okay, cool. So now, but here if you see, yeah, but one thing, Megan, I hope that I guess that these concepts you might be already familiar, you might have already taught this, but don't lose interest, right? So we are going step by step, and we will go to next level, and we will see what are different ways of parameter passing. Okay, so just stay alert, just in case. Okay, so now if I don't pass, parameter, now it's accepting a parameter, but I am not passing any parameter. Now what's happening? It is giving an error. Okay, because the meet AI function missing one required position argument name. Okay, see how clearly it is saying this function is actually expecting name as one position argument, and but we are missing that. Okay, now guys tell me if I remove that. Okay, now is that fine? Now if I just call this, what will the input? Just be interactive. So because here I'm not passing any value, so obviously here also do not expect any value. So now will it work without any error?
But name variable will expect something, right?
Correct. Okay, correct. So that is actually the syntax error. Okay, function wise it is fine. Okay, function, it's not a function error, but it is a variable error. Okay, function wise we are not passing any argument here, also we are not passing, we are not defining, we are not passing, so that's fine. It has entered the function. Okay, what I'm saying is function wise it's okay, this got matched. Okay, the connection got established between passing and passed function, calling and called function, but inside that there is some issue. Okay, that is one thing. Okay, but here in the earlier case, the function itself is the issue. It did not enter only because it's a parameter mismatch. Okay, fine. So this is one step. Second step is same thing. For example, as you said, of number. Okay, just simple example of 10. Okay, we just got the square of the number. Okay, so these are parameter mass passing. So each time parameter will be passed, matching, and it is printed. Okay, that's fine. After that, we will come back. We'll just cover at high level. First, we'll cover individually. So first we have seen the plain function, then we have seen the what is parameter, and now we'll see what is written. Okay, so that we'll have a complete understanding of the function. First, you should understand what all we are having, what all we can use. After that, we'll just come back and we go into detail of this parameter, and we'll see what all we can do with the return. Okay, fine. So parameter, you got a basic idea. Now return, right? So return statement, as I said, it's not a mandatory thing. Okay, but obviously when you're writing something, if you don't want to take anything from that function, so what is the use of writing function, right? It's not mandatory, that's fine. Even we're not returning. Okay, but when you're writing, when you want to connect different parts of the code, obviously a function should return something which can be used to in some other function. Okay, the chain flow should continue, right? So in that scenarios, obviously a function should return something. Okay, so it's like whenever you're writing a function, right? So it will obviously it can take some parameters, work upon the code, and the output thing it can return with a return function. Okay, for example, the basic function is defined. Okay, subtraction. If I just take some x and y. Okay, now return x minus y. Okay, now this is a function, fair enough. Okay, so now if I say subtraction of 100 minus 10. Okay, so now if I execute this, oh sorry. Okay, so you got the value. Okay, 100 minus 10. But if I say, for example, see, try to see carefully written. I'm saying result res equal to x minus y. Okay, and now I am res. Okay, so now if I have the value of, okay, we'll see. I'll show you a few things. Okay, now you're having print of res. Okay, this is perfect, right? So now guys, tell me if I print this, okay, sub of 100 comma 10, what it is going to give me? What will be the output of this? Hey guys, come on.
$90.
Right, but here there is a catch. This 90, okay, see, you said 90, the output of this is 90, fine. So now if I add this to 10, what I should get? 100, right? What I got? See, try to understand. So you said 90, okay, that's perfect. So 100 got passed here, 10 got passed here. The output of this is 90, perfect. So now if we consider the output of this is 90, if I add 10, what should be the value? 100, agree? But when I run this, I'm getting error. What it is saying, unsupported operand types for none type and integer. You see, the reason here is the 90 over here is not the output of this sub. Okay, it is just printing the value whichever is present in the this function. Okay, so there is a difference. We'll understand that. See, when you are writing some function, so whatever if you want to print, you can print. So this is how it is just printing. When you're calling this, because there is a print function, it is just printing that value. Okay, but what this is calling function, right? So this is extremely important. See, this is function definition. Okay, this is defining a function. Okay? This is function calling. Okay. Now, when you're calling a function, what value this is getting, okay, after calling the function, what value that is getting stored into this is very important. Okay. Now it depends on, when, see, this is a function, you are saying sub 110, that's fine. That's fine. It is executing the function. But are you returning any function? Are you returning any value? Whether this function, is it returning any value?
No.
No, right? So obviously, when it is not returning any value, okay, no value will be returned to this function. Okay, so it is simply like this. So when you are saying some a equal to something, so if you write any value, if you say only two will be stored, right? But if you're not writing anything, so obviously none will be stored to this, right? So here also, when you are writing sub is what? Sub is actually calling this function, right? When it is calling this function, whatever this function returns, not prints. Print is just printing. Okay. So when you're calling a function, it will execute this, and whatever this function returns, that will be the value. Now this whole thing will be the value that this function is going to return. Okay. So that is a reason. For example, if you see here, if I print, okay, now if I print return, I'm returning the result. That means this function is actually giving out some value, some output. When it will give you, only when you use return, then only it is actually giving some value. Otherwise it is working, everything is fine, but it is not giving out that output. Okay. Only when you do return, then only this function is function sub, it's taking some input, it is processing everything. Only when you say return, it is returning some value. Only when it returns some value, whatever the function we are calling, right, sub of 100 comma 10. So now sub of 100 comma 10, the whole thing will be equal to the value it is returned. Because when you're calling a function, obviously, what will be the output of this? The output of this function will be the output of this, whatever processing that's happening. Okay. But when that will happen, only when this function is returning something, only then that value will be stored in this, whatever you're calling, right? This will be equal to the return. Okay. In simple words, this will be equal to return. And that will happen only when this function is returning. Otherwise, if it is processing everything, let's say it is having 100 lines of code, it is processing everything, but in 101 line, it is not returning. Okay. That means the whole output, what all it is generated, that is still inside the function itself. It did not come out. It cannot come out without a return keyword. Okay. So only when you use return keyword, it can pass out that output of this function, what all it has had. And that value will be equal to whatever it has called. If this is calling, that will be return. If some other function is calling, whatever that is returning, that will be equal to that return. Okay. Till that return is not happening, you will not have any value. Okay. That's why now when I say this sub equal to, see, now when I say sub of 100 comma 10, if I run this, as you can see, the output is 90. Okay. But now this output is what? It is returning the value res. Okay. And this is stored into this. Now if I do plus 10, you got 100. Okay. So that's this change you need to understand. Why I got 100 now, and when I just, I don't want to print also. Okay. I just here now when I call this, now I'm executing this function. Okay. Now what is happening? This is a subtraction function, result x minus y. Okay. Now result is generated. When I call this function, result will be generated because res equal to x minus y. But now when I call this, okay, see, now when I call this, what's happening? What output I got? Nothing, right? Because this function, the sub 10 comma 100, so this 110, this 100 got passed over here, 10 got passed over here, and x equal to 100, y equal to 10, that's fine, and res equal to 100 minus 10, 90, res equal to 90, that's fine. Till that point it's perfect, everything has happened. But after that, what? It is not printing anything, that's why you're not seeing any output. Okay. And leave that, it is not returning anything. This is main thing, it is not returning. When it is not returning anything, obviously the output of this is nothing, because the output of calling function will be just the return of the function, the define function. Okay, the output of this is called calling function. This is called function. Okay, so calling, and this is called. Okay, so the output of this called function, sorry, the output of this calling function is just the return value of the called function. Okay, so when the called function or the actual function is not returning anything, obviously there is no output stored in this calling function. Okay, so now that's why when this is output is generated, but it is not yet this one, it is not yet returned, so that's why you are not having. But if you just want to print it, you can just use the print statement, and once I run this, it will just print it. Just because it is printing, don't misunderstand that this value equal to 90. No. How I'm proving that? Because if this value equal to 90, then if I add 10, obviously the value should be 100. But now you are not getting 100. You are getting none, error. Because why? This value, this is now none, because the function is not returning anything, so the output will be none. Okay, because if you're not returning anything, the calling function value will be always none type. Okay, that means no value. So obviously you cannot add a none type with 10 integer, so that's why it's getting error. Okay, but if I use this also, if I just return some value, okay, and execute this, so now obviously this function is calling function, and this called function is also returning some value. So whatever the value that is getting returned, now that will be equal to this whole thing will be replaced with this value, res will be equal to this sub, right? So that will be 90, and when you add that to 10, it will be 100. Okay, is that clear, guys? The importance of return, what happens if you don't return, what happens if you return, let me know.
Yes, sir, clear.
Mostly we will assume like
Huh?
if we have print. Yeah, yes, Santosh. Yeah, mostly we will assume like if we have print statements. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's something. So function is also returning
Ah,
something.
correct,
That's
correct.
one different. Right? Everyone will assume. Yeah, it's printing, right? Anything.
Yes,
That's what actually it's just printing, but it's not written.
correct, correct. Okay. Yes. And now you can also perform actions on this return also. I'm doing. Okay. See, and one more thing is defining function will never give you error. Okay. So normally you can write t equal to c comma f. Okay. See, what is c? Did I say? What is f? Did I say? No. Okay. So see some other value, some q equal to Amazon. So what is Amazon? Did I say? No, because defining function will not give you error because it is not yet executed. This is never got executed. Okay, when it will get executed, a function will get executed only when it is called. Till it is not called, it is just laying there. There might be errors, there might be all unnecessary things inside that, okay, syntaxes, everything, but still that is fine because the interpreter it is only checking at the higher level. Okay, function def is there, okay, I'm happy, function is defined, okay, braces are there, okay, colon is there, okay, and everything is perfectly, indentation is happening, okay, and it is returning something, okay, but it is not concerned about the function body, whatever the logic you're writing, right? That is, it doesn't require, because that does not come under syntax. That will be taken care of only when you call this function. Only when you call this function, it will get an access to enter inside this body, then the actual issues will start. Okay, that is one thing you need to remember. Okay, so function. And now, yeah, so if I say, okay, add of 5 comma 2, okay, into 10. What will be the answer? Fast, yes, fast. We don't have time.
This 490.
Okay. Meghana, do you agree?
In written, it is result into
Huh? What?
written లో రిజల్ట్ ఇంటూ రిజల్ట్ అని ఉంది కదా సార్.
అవును. అయితే
ఎర్రర్ అనుకుంటున్నా సార్.
ఓకే. నో నో, అదే అంటున్నాను. సో నీకు రిటర్న్ ఆర్ఎస్ అనేది క్రియేట్ అయిన తర్వాత రిటర్న్లో నువ్వు యూ కెన్ యూజ్ ఎనీథింగ్. ఓకే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ సింప్లీ హియర్ ఐఎమ్ సెయింగ్ ఆర్ఎస్ -1. ఓకే, దిస్ మై ఫంక్షన్. సో నౌ సి here res see, I'll print this. Okay, now you'll understand. See, and also the way how you can differentiate between whether it is printing or whether it is the output is here. So as you can see, 110 when I pass 110, 10 minus 100 minus 10, 90, res 90 kada, and I'm printing 90. So when you're printing 90, it is just printing. Okay, but after that what I'm returning I'm res -1 I'm returning. Okay, that means 90 minus 1, 89. 89 అనేది I'm returning. Okay, returning will be, and this value will be stored in this one. Okay, as I said, this value will be equal to return of this, and this is actually the output. So that's why you're seeing it in the output. Okay, 89 is the output, but 90 is just printing. Okay, one way you to differentiate whether the value which you're getting is actually the printing or output. Okay, this is one thing. So just to tell you, Meghana, so in return also you can perform any operation, or you can use any equation, and you can again, okay, use that value what you're returning. No need to return exactly. So here you're having res. Here you can again change the flow of res. Okay, you can do some operations on res also. Okay, it's not mandatory that whatever you are having the answer you should exactly return. You can do anything with that res over here. Okay, so now perfect. So now here 5 comma 2, 5 comma 2 is 2. Okay, so res will be 7. Now 7 into 7, 49, 490 into 10, 490. So 490. Okay, did you understand that, Meghana? అర్థం కాకపోతే చెప్పు, నో ప్రాబ్లం, ఐ విల్ టెల్ అగైన్.
సార్ అండర్స్టాండ్.
Okay, perfect. So now uh, okay, so guys, I'll just ask a few questions with this function. So be open your mics and just be ready. Okay, so now if I say meet AI, okay, now this is my function. This is how I'm calling the function. So what it will return. Okay, so I'm defining the function, that's fine. So now I'm calling the function. So if I execute this, what will be the output? Just guess. Karthik, just put into the chat. Meghana, you can also put it in the chat fast. Come on, guys. Simple function. Just think and give it a guess. Meet AI using concatenation. Meet AI as single string. Okay. Ha ha ha. Now we'll see, you see what it will return. What it has returned. Well, suppressed. Why? Because what I'm returning,
Returning string. Well,
yeah, what I'm returning, I'm returning wall, VAL, right? So the concept here is, the funny thing here is, in this, if I show you in this function, for example, right? So you can write everything over here, but ultimately you are returning full, for example. Okay. Now when I pass this sub 100 comma 10, what it will return?
full.
Full. Okay. So what you are returning is also important. Okay. So just because you are processing this doesn't mean you will use that, right? So here when you are returning something, so it is irrespective of this function, right? So you whatever value you give, right? Whatever value, even 12, 10, it is giving you full. Okay. So now even if I give 12, 10, some 30, so now what will be the output? Fast. What will be the output?
We need to pass one more parameter.
Right. So it will give an positional argument error. Okay. So if you give anything, the return will be full, because this function is always returning full. Okay. So what the function is returning is also very important. Okay. So always you should keep an eye. Okay. So now if I pass data, so now what it will return?
Val only.
Okay. So now tell me, now if I do, okay, fine. And now if I execute this, what it will print?
Meet AI.
Huh?
Meet.
Right.
Yeah, meet AI.
Meet AI. Okay. Correct. Meghana, you also agree? It will print meet AI.
It's not returning.
Yeah, correct. You should check that. Okay, it will give you an error, because here I'm not, this function is not returning, this function is not returning anything. So obviously when you're calling this function, it will not have anything, none. So this will be none. None, you cannot add it to string. Clear? Now, Meghana?
Meet AI YouTube.
Perfect. Okay. So these things you should be very, so that's why in every concept I tell you, understand the concept is never hard in Python. From my experience, it's very simple. Even 10th class or inter guy with that IQ also, you can understand simple. Hey, this is a function, a define చేయాలి, values ఉంటుంది, return ఉంటుంది, ఎవరికైనా అర్థమవుతుంది. That's simple. But to understand the small things, right? So here the people will, fall into the pit, right? So simply you will think, okay, function is there, return ఉంది, define అయింది, నేను పాస్ చేస్తున్నా, నా వాల్యూ రావాలి కదా అనుకుంటారు. బట్ వాట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ రిటర్న్ యూ షుడ్ అండర్స్టాండ్. ఓకే. సెకండ్ థింగ్, ఓకే, నేను ఫంక్షన్ అంతా ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవుతుంది, నేను కాల్ కూడా చేస్తున్నా, ఆబ్వియస్లీ ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ సమ్ వాల్యూ అనుకుంటారు. బట్ ఫంక్షన్ రిటర్న్ చేయకపోతే ఎవ్రీథింగ్ ఈస్ స్టేయింగ్ ఇన్సైడ్ ద ఫంక్షన్. Okay. So that's the reason to understand different scenarios, right? So if you have that knowledge, then you will have 360 degrees view of the concept. So or else the function syntax definitions are all simple. 5 minutes low, you can, even if you open any YouTube also, you will have the content available. Okay. Or to the function, you will have step by step return untadi, okay, parameters untadi, define untadi, call jayali, that is anywhere available. Okay, but to understand different scenarios, what happens, the permutations combinations is where you will get the actual concept from. Okay, so now I think you understood like what is the importance of parameters, how you should pass the parameters, and the number of parameters is important. So that we are going to see anyhow. Second thing is this is just an oral idea of parameters and return. Okay, we'll go into details of parameters. Okay, then you will have more understanding of parameters. Okay, but now at a high level, I hope you understood what is the parameters, okay, and what is the return value, right? A function can return some value, a function cannot return a value, correct? And a function can accept a parameter, function cannot accept a parameter, correct? A function, if it is while defining, it is defined with some parameters. While you are calling also, obviously you should pass same number of parameters. Here we are passing two parameters, here also you should pass two parameters, because that's how it is, it will expect. Okay, second thing, the called function output is simply the return of the function defined. Okay, the calling function output is simply the output of the defined function. If this function is not returning anything, obviously this value will be none. Okay, and you cannot do any operations on that. Okay, just because a function is showing an output, that does not mean it is returning. It can be also just a print value. Okay, so print value will just print it from the function, but return value will actually return value only when you return some value. Okay, this is defining and it is returning some value, right? And you're calling this function, only when it is returning, this will be connected and output will be given to this, so that you can use this in somewhere. Okay, if there is no return, as long as this does not return anything, the output will stay here only. Okay, there is no connection output, nothing is coming out of this. Okay, that means this will be none, you cannot do any operations. Okay, fine, I hope this is clear. And second thing is, just one small concept is there, we'll cover that. And tomorrow we will see, we'll go into deep depth of different types of parameters. Okay, these parameters are also called as arguments, right? So there are different ways how you can give the arguments, right? So once you are good with different how, what are the ways of you can pass and accept and access the arguments, I think you will be very good, very comfortable in functions. And after that, nothing about the function will scare you. Okay, but otherwise if you don't understand that, that will be an issue. Now coming to, just to conclude return, right? So return, it's not necessarily that you should return only one value. Okay, you can also return multiple values. Okay, so here I'm saying I'm using a function, mix function. Okay, what I'm doing, mix of a comma b, right? I'm doing add equal to a plus b and subtraction equal to a minus b. Okay, and then I can return add comma subtraction. Okay, so this is a function I'm defining. Okay, and did someone put any chat? Okay, right. So now when I'm calling this function, you pass some value 50, 60, right? And when I the output of this, what first can you tell me what will be the output of this return statement, right? The output of this will be obviously return statement. Agree? But what is return doing? Return is returning two values, right? Return is returning two values. So obviously there should be two accepting values also here, two variables to accept that. Okay, so that's why you need to go for some values here. So a comma b will be mix of 50 comma 60. Okay, because what this value itself is the return value of this, right? Whatever you are returning is this, and you are putting it over here. Okay, this is another way of saying. Okay, just if I come back here, I'll come back there. Okay, so just stay with me. See, for example, I'm doing this. Can you just tell me what will be the, okay, what will be the output of if I just say 11 comma, okay, 2, it's 11 comma 3, okay, and s into 7, what will be the output now? Guys, fast. So if I execute this, what will be the output?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Meghana, you agree? So see, if you understand and if you don't give answer, that's fine. But I don't know. If you don't give answer, I'll think you're not understanding. So what is that? So you understood the concept and but or you did not understand the concept. What will be the output here?
Error.
Why? Why? I just am curious. Why? No, that's fine. Just tell me like where you are, where you thought it's error. We'll try to understand. Because you're learning, obviously it's fine. But I just want to know like why you thought error. It might be error also. I also not execute. We'll see. Just tell me like where you think it will fail.
You said if we execute function, it will return none value.
When it will return none value, when the function is not returning anything, then it will return none value kada. నేను ఓకే నేను చెప్పింది ఫంక్షన్ ఏం రిటర్న్ ఇవ్వకపోతే ఈ ఫంక్షన్ ఏదైతే డిఫైన్ చేసావో అది ఏ వాల్యూ రిటర్న్ చేయకపోతే అప్పుడు ఈ వాల్యూ విల్ బి నన్. కరెక్టా లేకుంటే రాంగ్ అర్థమైందా నీకు? ఒకవేళ ఈ ఫంక్షన్ అనేది ఆల్రెడీ సమ్ వాల్యూ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంటే ద అవుట్పుట్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ కాలింగ్ ఫంక్షన్ విల్ బి ఈక్వల్ టు ద రిటర్న్ అని చెప్పాను కదా.
Okay, sir. Understood.
నో ఎక్కడ మిస్అండర్స్టాండింగ్ అయింది? ఎందుకంటే నేను క్లియర్గా ఏం చెప్పానంటే సి అగైన్ ఐఎమ్ సేయింగ్ ఇది కాలింగ్ ఫంక్షన్, ఇది ఫంక్షన్ డెఫినేషన్. ఓకే, ఈ ఫంక్షన్ ఏం చేస్తుంది? ఈ ఫంక్షన్ని కాల్ చేస్తుంది. ఓకే, ఒకవేళ ఈ ఫంక్షన్ అనేది ఏం రిటర్న్ చేయకపోతే ఈ కాలింగ్ ఫంక్షన్ వాల్యూ విల్ బి నన్. ఒకవేళ ఈ ఫంక్షన్ అనేది రిటర్న్ చేస్తే, ఇది రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది కదా, రిటర్న్ చేస్తే అప్పుడు ఈ వాల్యూ వచ్చి ఇక్కడ స్టోర్ అవుతుంది కదా, ఈ RES విల్ బి ఈక్వల్ టు దిస్. నౌ దిస్ సబ్ అనే వాల్యూ కంప్లీట్లీ విల్ బి రిటర్న్, ఇట్ విల్ బి RES. దిస్ విల్ బి ఈక్వల్ టు RES బికాస్ ఫంక్షన్ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది కదా. సింపుల్ కాన్సెప్ట్ మే కదా. ఫంక్షన్ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది, ఆబ్వియస్ గా రిటర్న్ చేసిన వాల్యూ వచ్చి దీంట్లో ఉంటుంది కదా. ఎందుకంటే దీని పని ఏంటి? ఇది కాల్, ఇది ఈ ఫంక్షన్, ఈ SUB అనేది ఏం చేస్తుంది? కాల్ చేస్తుంది ఫంక్షన్ ని, వెళ్ళింది ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసింది. ఒకవేళ ఈ ఫంక్షన్ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది కాబట్టి ఆ వాల్యూ వచ్చి దీంట్లో స్టోర్ అవుతుంది. సింపుల్. ఒకవేళ రిటర్న్ చేయకపోతే అప్పుడు ఇది నన్ అవుతుంది, ఎందుకంటే రిటర్న్ ఏం చేయట్లేదు అది. క్లియరా?
Okay, sir. Clear.
ఓకే, నౌ టెల్ మీ వాట్ విల్ బి ద అవుట్పుట్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ క్లియర్.
$56.
Perfect. Okay, so that is the concept. Okay, but no ఇందాక అన్నట్టు if this is function is not returning anything, okay, now ఏమవుతుంది? Now if I run this
Error.
error, okay, ఎందుకంటే it is not returning anything. Okay, that you should clear understand. Okay, బట్ ఈ సినారియోలో, ఇంతకుముందు సినారియోలో కూడా RES అనేది జనరేట్ అయ్యింది, ఎందుకంటే ఫంక్షన్ లోపలికి వెళ్ళింది కాబట్టి కంట్రోల్ RES జనరేట్ అయ్యింది. కానీ ఇందాక మనం రిటర్న్ చేస్తున్నాం కాబట్టి వాల్యూ రిటర్న్ అయ్యి దీంట్లో స్టోర్ అయ్యింది. ఏంటది? ఎంత అది? 8 అనేది. అప్పుడు 8 అనేది S8 అయింది, 856 అనేది అయ్యింది ఇంతకుముందు. బట్ ఇప్పుడు మనం ఇది కమెంట్ చేసాం కాబట్టి రిటర్న్ కావట్లే. RES అనేది జనరేట్ అయ్యింది కానీ అది రిటర్న్ కావట్లేదు. రిటర్న్ కానప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తుంది? ఏం వాల్యూ అనేది ఇది అవుట్పుట్ ఇవ్వట్లేదు. డిఫైన్ ఫంక్షన్ అనేది ఏం వాల్యూ అవుట్పుట్ ఇవ్వట్లేదు. సో ఆబ్వియస్గా దీంట్లో ఏ వాల్యూ లేదు ఇప్పుడు, ఎందుకంటే ఇది ఫంక్షన్కి వెళ్ళింది కానీ బయటికి ఏమి రాలేదు. ఇన్పుట్తో వెళ్ళింది కానీ అవుట్పుట్తో ఏం రాలేదు. సో ఫంక్షన్ ఏమి ఇవ్వట్లేదు కాబట్టి దీంట్లో వాల్యూ ఏమి ఉండదు. ఇది నన్ అవుతుంది. అప్పుడు నన్ అయినప్పుడు ఆబ్వియస్గా నన్ ఇంటూ 7 అనేది చేయలేం కాబట్టి సో నన్ టైప్ ఇంటూ ఇంటీజర్ మల్టిప్లికేషన్ నాట్ పాసిబుల్ అంటుంది. ఓకే, So I hope the concept is completely clear, Meghana. So and ఎందుకంటే బేసిక్స్ లో ఎప్పుడు డౌట్స్ పెట్టుకోవద్దు, ఎందుకంటే నీకు ఆఫ్టర్ నీకు యాక్చువల్ ఏమన్నా ఆల్గరిథమ్స్ లో అట్లా ఉంటే ఓకే, కానీ బేసిక్స్ లో డౌట్ ఉంటే కష్టం అవుతుంది, రైట్? సో ఇట్స్ కంప్లీట్లీ క్లియర్, రైట్? రిటర్నింగ్ ఎప్పుడు రిటర్న్ అవుతుంది, ఎప్పుడు నన్ అవుతుంది అనేది.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, perfect. So now the second concept is now I'm happy I came back to this so that your concept is clear. So now here the point here is when it is the ikkada SUB 11,3 undi kada, 11,3. Yeah, so now if I'm returning some value, okay, now if returning some value, so this when I'm calling this function SUB, this value equal to RES, this value itself will be RES. Okay, the whole value will be equal to RES. Now what I'm doing, I'm using that RES into some yes. I can do that, right? So I can do that. It is same like, see, even if I do this into 756, or I can just, now this value is RES, I'm putting that value into some yes, I'm using s into 7, this will also be 56. Okay, fine. But this is simple. But now if you come down, instead of returning one value, you can also return multiple values. So what I'm doing here, this is I'm using a function mix, okay, and add subtraction, okay, add and subtract. I'm returning two values, right? So when this is function defining, just defining. But now when I say mix of 50 comma 60, right, mix of 50 comma 60, that means passing two values, this add and subtract are generated and it is returning two values. So obviously I should have two values to accept also, right? When two values are coming, I should also have two values to store them, right? So if I just call this, okay, but it's giving 50 60, okay, yeah, so it's giving a tuple, fine. So when you're giving output, right, it's giving a tuple, right? But if you want to store each of the value inside this, so you need to give a equal to 50 comma 60. So now if you print a comma b 110 comma minus 10, okay, but if you don't give, it is actually, it will take the whole thing into a tuple, okay? So that's why if you see when I do mix of 50 comma 60, right? So when I say type of 50 comma 60, you got tuple, okay? So when you're returning multiple values, this whole values will be written in the form of a tuple, okay? This is tuple, right? And this is what tuple packing unpacking we learned, right? So if you want to take each value into one individual variable, so you can give 50 a comma b as this is tuple unpacking, right? The whole value is tuple, so it got packed into a tuple, and now you are unpacking that value into different values. So this is tuple unpacking. So here it is tuple is getting packed, tuple packing is happening, and it is passing as the whole values as a tuple, and here it is unpacking as a unpacking the tuple into different variables, okay? So but the main concept is a return can return multiple values also, okay? So for example, here what I'm doing, I'll do this, okay? What is this? You can return multiple values, agree? So you can do anything. So I'm just returning, okay? So you can return multiple values, and you can also unpack that tuple. Now if I print a and b, hello, bye, okay? But mainly the point here is whatever, how many values, see, now you'll get an error because this output you are returning two values, okay, that is hello and bye, but when you are unpacking, you are giving three values. So obviously expected is 3, got only 2, okay? So that will be an error, okay? So the point, yeah, so just to summarize, return can return multiple values, okay? It's not only one value, okay? So and this will be written in the form of tuple, okay? So this is actually important. The data type, wherever you see a data type, right, give more attention to that, because in future you will understand the output of return in multiple returns is always a tuple. The moment it is tuple, it should take you to all the methods of tuple. So when I say tuple, obviously I cannot do any item assignments, okay? That means what, see, when I'm doing this tuple, I'm returning add and subtraction, okay? Tuple is returning this one, so obviously this is written. So what is this? A of 0 equal to 110, okay? Now a of g equal to, if I say 100, what it is saying, tuple does not support item assignment. Clear? Again, from here we went back to tuple data type concept. Why? because the return, it is returning these two values in the form of a tuple, and that tuple you cannot do item assignment. Okay, so the main concept here is return can always return more than one function, any number of functions it can return. So all those will be in the form of tuples. Okay, so like that, but usually the way how you will be doing here is, let's say, yeah, so this is the one you will say, so multiply A into B, okay, and division equal to A by B. Okay, and now I'm returning multiplication and division. Okay, so now if I pass these two values, let's say 10 comma 20, it is giving you all these values. Okay, so now you can just mix multiple concepts, right? So for I in range of 5, okay, and here for J in this pattern programming we have seen, right? For J in range of 4, okay. Now what is this? Print I comma J, right? And what I'm doing, I'm also printing mix of I comma J, right? What is happened? Okay, so here 0, division by 0, because it will start from 0, right? Okay, that's fine. 1 comma 5 I will say, and here 1 comma 4. Okay, perfect. See every time. So when if you just want to differentiate, you can just do some beautification, and every time initially 1 comma 1 is passed, and these are the add, subtraction, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and next 1 comma 2 is getting passed, and like that whole range you are passing, and you are getting the individual 4 addition, subtraction, multiplication, division values. Okay, you can write a small program, so you combine with different concepts, looping, functions, print, etc. Okay, you can return multiple values. Is it clear, guys? Are we good till now? Honestly.
Yes, sir. But
Cool. Karthik, clear, right? Hey, Karthik. Okay, fine. So I would say that's all for today, right? So tomorrow we are going to cover types of arguments. Okay, so I'll take 1 minute, not more than that. So tomorrow we are going to cover types of arguments, which is a fundamental, actually the extremely important concept of arguments. Okay, arguments are nothing but parameters which you are passing, we'll see. Okay, so the basically 4 types of arguments. Okay, one is positional, second thing is keyword, third thing is default, and fourth thing is variable. Okay, so once you're comfortable with these 4 functions, is like just cakewalk. Okay, tomorrow we'll see this, and we'll see different scenarios, and we'll see some examples. So that should be good start with the functions. Okay, so that's all for today. If you don't have any doubts, let's meet tomorrow. Thanks, guys.